For those of you who are new to this channel, I'm a film, TV, computer game, occasionally composer, and I'm a samplist, but my entire career has been underwritten by writing something called production or library music. Imagine a photographic library like Getty or Adobe, same thing, but with music. So I'm often asked on this channel to talk about what it is, how it works, and how to get into it. It's an ever-changing industry, one that I haven't been involved with as much recently. So in a recent trip to LA, I decided to grab a bit of Russell Emanuel's time. He's the CEO of Extreme Music, who are a company that really bucked the trend and redefined what production music was and is, going from the slightly poorer cousin of commission music and synchronized music to one that involves the likes of Quincy Jones, Snoop Dogg, you name it. I asked Russell a bunch of questions, starting with what is library music and how prevalent it is.
I think the last estimate is up to 80% of music you're hearing is library music. That's always been a bit of a bone of contention between what's paid out to commercial artists and library writers. It's admittedly more functional. An enormous amount of what you hear is music created not to be sold, but to be licensed into shows. With a massive shift in the last, recently to songs. It used to be instrumental exclusively. And then more recently, songs, and Extreme were at the forefront of that charge. I wouldn't say it was an argument with my business partner, it wasn't. We were always friendly tugging, but he, like everyone else, didn't think that songs would go. And I'm not trying to make that be some kind of foresight on my, it was just me wanting to do something more interesting, and it caught fire.
So I think we need to go down to the kitchen, because there is, in fact, a misconception about music revenue and that it's a pie that's divvied up or a cake. It is in fact two cakes. Publishing or performance revenue relates to the authorship, who has written the song. In this country, the UK, the publisher or the publishing company who shares this revenue with you, the author, can take a maximum of 50%. And then there is the mechanical income, comes from the exploitation of the recording. The person who owns the recording is the person who's paid for it. And how much of a cut they decide to give you as an artist isn't legislated by law. How do you earn money from this? Well, it being synchronized on the telly or on films. There is a fee payable for the rights to use that, and indeed stuff like record sales.
The traditional area of song sync is a hit record or a song from a band. It has a label, it has a publisher, sometimes many publishers and multiple labels depending on how many songwriters are involved.
How many samples?
How many samples are involved. So it's, by its very nature, complex to license. A music supervisor has to be involved. Doesn't have to be involved, but it's generally involved. Someone handling clearance, whether it's the supervisor or even a sync agency. And then they have to go and approach the different publishers, therefore the different songwriters, different companies. Generally, it's a slow process and expensive. And you also have to clear the publishing and the master side. Production music was specifically designed to be one-stop. The production music company or the library company owns all of the rights and are careful when they create the music to make sure that every songwriter, every performer, every right is cleared within that one-stop shop. So in America, it operates differently in England and Germany and Australia. But in America, they'll have to come to the production music company to clear the right. In many of those other territories I mentioned, they're controlled by a society, MCPS, PRS, GAMA, Boomer, STEMRA, CSAC. So it really, in those instances, is not even a call. The broadcaster or the production company will have a rate card, or they'll have paid a blanket fee to use as much music as they want throughout the year. And they'll report those uses, and then the money will be kind of, if it's a blanket fee, will be divvied up throughout the year and paid to the rights holders. Locally in the UK, whether you're using library or commercial catalogue, it's all included. It's a kind of grandfathered deal that's been going a long time, and I think shortly that may be changing. Certain companies are withdrawing those rights.
Beatles, Led Zeppelin, right. AC/DC.
Absolutely. But there's been some very famous cases recently where big hit shows have used AC/DC, for example, And the band have, when they're looking for their money, have realised that, that it was $100. And really, as simple as that.
But also possibly using songs contextually in a way
that's also right. Yeah, that's right. And that's one of the big differences. Commercial artists, Stones, will have some control over the usage. They'll have the veto. If a show wants to use it, that doesn't fit with what they want it, they'll be able to say no. Production music, we don't have any of that. When you're working for a production music library, your moral rights, you have to put that to one side.
The library music I've done in the past often been organised by both genre of what you're writing for, so documentaries, action music, this kind of stuff, but also style. But I'm wondering, is that form of briefing the same these days, or is it changing?
It's interesting because I spent a long time kind of distancing ourselves, extreme specifically, from kind of the traditional way of creating genre-specific music. But it's either kind of TV genres, crime, romance, reality, war show. I mean, that's essentially the brief. And then subgenres of that. So crime tension, crime investigation. Rather than being briefed by the show to create music, you're actually predicting what music editors, music supervisors might want. Predicting is probably generous because you've only got to watch some shows to know what those tropes are. And they haven't changed. I mean, there's, music stylistically they've changed, but they still exist. There's true crime and there's, war shows and, reality. There's always one. The one now, every call will be, if you've got White Lotus. When someone's brave and that becomes successful, then that becomes the new brief. I mean, I think the biggest one is Interstellar or Gladiator. Funny enough, by a composer not too far from here. Being on both sides of the industry, because we have a custom scoring division as well, almost always the kick, I'm sure you get this as well, the first call is, we got this show, we want to do something different this time. I think maybe 1% of the time they actually follow through with that.
I did, back in my day, about 30 albums for a company called, or was involved with, for a company called KPM, and it felt like throwing a lot of stuff up the wall to see if anything would stick. And I did have a couple of hits, which I did very well out of. Is that the same approach these days, and particularly with extreme music?
There's a perception that we're a very big company. We're not. We're very surgical. I mean, we're quality over quantity. And I think, fortunately, everyone's feeling that now. Historically, there was this kind of, we've got to feed the machine. We've got to, release thousands of albums a year. And now curation is king. Our clients rely on us to be careful. Some of the AI tools that are coming into our industry for search, AI-assisted search, are making this much more accurate. It means we actually don't have to produce as much.
I imagine AI is helping people with that saying I was saying, talking about music's like dancing about architecture. It's a Frank Zappa quote, I believe. And how difficult it is to find music if you don't know how to describe it.
Many of those conversations are difficult, and many of those conversations are so conceptual that you have to listen, create a vocabulary with the client. What you're doing is building a friendship and a trust. But then you still have to go and experiment and just throw different sounds around. And Hans always says, there's no point in talking about music until you've got music to talk about. And I think that's really, really great, because so many calls at the start of a project are, we're imagining it's blue and grey and this show's about that, and you leave the conversation and go, no idea.
No, absolutely. No. Now, as I mentioned before, you have the publishing pot and you have the mechanical pot. The publishing is fixed legally to a minimum of 50% taken by the publishing company, the rest being divided up between the writers. But what of the mechanical aspect?
Now there's subscription models as well, these big libraries where, and mostly aimed at user-generated, creators who haven't got the kind of budget and are kind of in the lower tier of licensing, but still want great music. And there are companies that do subscription where you're paying a monthly subscription for the rights you need. They generally don't include TV and broadcast and theatrical movies. I mean, their models can be expanded, but that's really where they're focused on. Royalty-free is a word that is thrown out across many genres. It's very confusing. There have been players, I have to be careful, there have been players in the industry that will buy out the composer's performance right, which is, the performance right is the money paid when any piece of music is played across the airwaves, and I sound old, airwaves, but broadcast on any medium. As a composer, hopefully you will get a fee when the music is used, or you get a fee to create the music when it comes to Extreme. We pay a fee to create the music, then we share the fee we receive when the music is licensed from us, and then from the Performance Society, ASCAP, PRS, etc., there'll be a fee payable for every time it's played on the air. Bear in mind it's registered properly, the end user actually reports it properly, there's a whole bunch of problems around that. But that's the dream. That is how we work. We're partners with our talent, and I think that's the healthiest way to work. There are different models where some people pay a fee up front and not share the licensing revenue. And, we all have to make money. There's a place for everyone.
Something I wanted to find out from Russell is, I've always been given the fear rather, that these streamers, whether it be Spotify or Netflix, don't actually pay out publishing or performance revenue.
The new thing for production music is that we are now making our music available on streaming services like SoundCloud and Spotify and Apple Music, because the audience now become more sophisticated. Shazam has been important to viewers. They want, what am I listening to? What's that song? And now that they have Shazam, they want to then go and find it. And that's opened up a new revenue stream because we're paid in the same way that any commercial artist is paid for a stream. As Netflix started and growing, there was all composers going, I'm not going to get any money. It's not going to pay the same as NBC. And that's absolutely true. But the exposure is much broader. And if you're on a hit show on Netflix, it could be just as lucrative, if not more lucrative, than the network TV show. It comes through the Performance Societies, absolutely. They do also pay a license fee to companies such as ours at the start, and we share that with our talent based on usage. They're in the top tier of players, and for composers, they're very important.
When I was coming up through the ranks, you had TV composers, film composers, and library composers, and I think I was part of that first generation to span a lot, to be a jack of all trades. Is that continuing to change, that people are less snobby about the importance of library music?
We're in the business because we love music. I mean, I tell people I'm a reluctant CEO. I don't know how this happened. I thought I was a bass player, and then all this happened. And therefore, our motivation, I think just like yours, is you're here because you love to do this. And I think that's a very different motivation for people that are in it because they love business. Both valid, but I think it's healthy, and it's great to see musicians and songwriters and composers flourish in this area. And sorry, I got sidetracked, but they trust us, some of these big names, including Hans and Quincy Jones and Snoop Dogg and Labyrinth, and the list goes on. I mean, and it continues to grow because they know that we are authentic in the way we're producing. We're not just creating music, which was really the industry's, maybe unfairly for a while, but the industry's reputation for a broad period of time. The heyday of production music, the start of production music was amazing. The Green Label, amazing, and DeWolf, and beautiful. And you listen to it now, and you couldn't even record some of those sessions now. It would be so expensive. And then it had a rough patch. It had this kind of business for business sakes patch, I'd say, in the
Was that with the
80s, 90s.
Advances of bedroom studios, basically?
I think, anyone can produce music, and, the accessibility, and there was this unhealthy kind of sound alike. I mean, if you listen to some of them, it's amazing. I still hear them, understandably. We're not always rocket scientists. We don't always make the right move. And, I know here we've become a lot more grown up. And it's great. It's very exciting. And I think I mentioned Shazam earlier. I use this story because it's kind of the blue sky. But we had a #1 hit record 2 years ago from a usage in a Polish soft porn. It wasn't porn really. It was kind of 50 Shades of Grey movie made in Poland for no budget. A Polish agent licensed the piece of music into the... Actually, licensed all of the music in the film. They were all songs. This one scene just hit, and the song came out of it called I See Red. Last year it was certified gold, 2 billion TikToks and 350,000 streams. I mean, it's a bona fide, been performed on America's Idol and America's Got Talent and idols all over the world. And in fact, one of my friends is in charge of music at The Voice, and he said, every season someone wants to sing that song, and it's a production music song. Always Sunny in Philadelphia, that's one of our songs. It's a production music song. Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yes. It was for a bank.
Yes.
He spotted it. Yeah. I remember my mother was in a TV series called Give Us a Clue.
Oh my God, I remember it was so...
Do you remember it had the same theme tune as Grange Hill for the first season?
Right. That's right. Yeah. And there's so many, like Blue Peter.
Yep. Archers.
Archers, Grandstand, Pathé News. Over here, the American football, Monday Night Football theme. It's an enormous piece of music in the zeitgeist of America. You put that on, any American will recognize it. That's a KPM track.
So the big question I get asked the most on this channel is how do you get into it? What are companies looking for? What is Russell looking for in composers wanting to get into the library or production music game?
Many recommendations. Look, I think this is a piece of advice. I feel like my own broken record, but I think the mistake that is often made is a composer when they approach a company or someone such as ourselves or our A&R team, they'll go, I'm a composer, I'm great. And usually they are, by the way, there's so much amazing talent there. The worst thing they can say is, I can do anything. We don't need that. What we need is someone who does something really well and that is just a specialist and just shines in that area. And that's much more compelling and interesting for us. And by the way, if you can do something no one else can do, I know that's very rare. People that come in and say, I'm circuit bending toys. Great. That's super exciting. I can do some rock music for you. There's a million people out there that can do it. There is value in there. Obviously, there's value. But I think our users are looking to be inspired and the light switched on for them. And how exciting is it for them to hear some music that's just crazy and adventurous and brave? I think when we started Bleeding Fingers as well, one thing that Hans was telling me was like, I don't need any more Hans Zimmers. The world, and by the way, he's saying it humbly. Be inspired by Hans, be inspired by all these great composers, but then spend the time to find your voice. It's all within us. We're all unique. I mean, that's the one thing that AI can't do. Great music comes from pain and life experience, and a machine doesn't have that.
And the question we're all asking these days is what impact does AI have on the future of Larby music? Is it, pardon my French?
It's the new competitor. We've always had a new competitor. Yeah. Now, never one as powerful as this and as growing fast as this, but AI wouldn't be able to do an emulation of Drake. There'd be no fake Drake without Drake. Yeah. If that's your bar, spiderweb that out through every artist. So you've got to be Drake. Yeah. Be the next one of those. Yeah. And by the way, that takes time. And I think one of the things is we rush. I must create music. I must come in there. But we don't take the time to say, come in and throw the drum kit down the stairs. There was a period of time, I don't want this to sound negative, but there was a period of time where you could be mediocre, let's be honest. And great. Enjoy that moment. That moment has probably passed. Yeah. I speak to people daily that are worried about AI, and I totally get it, but I'm excited about it. The creative tools it's opening up, the way it's helping our industry, it's made massive changes, and so quickly.
And I think historically the music industry has reacted terribly to new technology.
That's right.
Whether it be printed music, the MP3, synthesizers.
And because of that, the companies that I don't think we're big fans of, I think we know who they are, they're exploiting that history because they're using it in their legal case to go, you're just treating us like Napster. It's a PR, it's a soundbite. No, we're not. This is not that. Napster was taking other people's music and selling it. This is creating something completely different. But I think we're suffering from that bad press. Music industry are slow to react and reacted poorly. This time, from what I'm seeing people being much more thoughtful in the way they're dealing with it, and I'm hopeful that we'll come through this in the most positive light possible. But they definitely, it's going to be swings and roundabouts. The Lindrum didn't kill the drummer. I remember, I think it was the Melody Maker or New Music Express. I remember being on the tube and there was a picture of a Lindrum on the front. I'd heard one.
Yeah.
I heard one, and it said, I think the headline was, "It will always turn up on time, it will never be drunk, and it won't shag your girlfriend." Like, fantastic.
Yeah.
The headline was "The drummer is dead," and that was the 3 taglines. But absolutely not. And in fact, we're celebrating the Lindrum now. We're bringing it back.
I'm sure you've got many questions for myself, for Russell, and any other composers who are writing music under these different models that are being employed these days. Please put them in the comments down below. I think you'll agree with me that the stuff that Russell has taken us through has been incredibly valuable, and it's really valuable for me to share with you through Russell, who genuinely is not only at the coalface, he's supervising it. Thank you so much, Russell, for your time. I think this is an invaluable video that people refer to time and time again. As always, your contributions via the comments really help me to determine what material we're making moving forward. And being a small startup, the subscriptions are a massive thing for us. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. There's going to be nuggets of information coming up. One of those, to thank Russell, will be much appreciated from both myself and him. See you next time.